Hello and welcome back to the Winning at Blackjack series. Today is episode 5 of the series where we'll be finishing our simulation and running a very realistic version of how casino blackjack works. We will be doing this by adding our last component, splitting hands. This is a follow-on from last video where we implemented basic strategy and made all the people play out their hand and then deal out the winnings or losses. Last video we also saw that after about 1 million hands of betting £10 and starting at 100 grand, we lost about £62,000. So it'll be interesting to see how splitting can impact the game. So just some quick background. Splitting is where we get given two of the same value of cards, so say 2 4s. We then in blackjack have the choice to split this hand into two, with you then giving this new hand the same bet as before, and then also receiving a new card from the dealer from each of these. One thing that is important to note, you can keep splitting, so if you split the 4s and then one of the hands also gets a 4 after, then we can split once again. So let's start by getting up the basic strategy chart for splitting a hand. This one luckily doesn't have as many combinations. Using a dictionary, like in the previous video, we can be doing a key with brackets, the value that we have, then the value that the dealer has, because that is the important once again. Then a colon with a simple yes or no for whether to split this hand or not. Luckily for you, I have already done the labour for this, so once again, you can find the dictionary in the description. Let's get some quick changes done before we start adding more code. To begin, we now have the potential to have multiple hands for the player. So we need to change the players list into a list inside of a list. And then also make it so the player's initial cards are now given to player 0. This change will also need to be done when checking for an initial blackjack. Perfect. For now, we will only change that variable. There will be a few changes later on, however. So we're going to want to split up the hands just before we start going through the player's hand. So this will be just after we use the if statement to check that there isn't dealer nor player blackjack. So we're going to first need to make a loop. Since we can split more than once in a hand, which you never know, mathematically you could split infinitely if there was an infinite shoe, so we will be using a loop that is determined by a variable splitting, with it being set to true, and then we'll do while splitting. First, let's initialize a variable called check. This will act as a way to go through each hand and determine if it's got split or not. If the check variable gets increased by 1 for every hand that isn't split, then if the check variable at the end of the for loop is the same size as the player's list, then we will know there is no more splitting to be done. We will program this in later on. So first, a for loop that goes through every hand in the player's list. First, we check if the hand is able to be split by checking the value of the hand's first card, then seeing if it is the same as the second card's value. We know that if they aren't the same, then they can't split. So we can else and then increase the check variable by 1. If they are the same, however, we will now check if basic strategy says if it's right to split this hand. Just like last time, we're going to create a key. The value is the value of the card. So we will grab that into the values variable and then use that as our first part in the key. Then the second part is the value of the dealer's up card. Dealer 0, colon -1. Since in the variable we have all the possibilities, there is no need for this try this time. So we will start by initializing the split variable. I'll put no, but it can be anything except yes. Now let's get the action from the key. Split equals split_strategy key. Now this will give us our answer if we are splitting or not. If we are splitting, so split is set to yes, then we will get into that. But just quickly, if we aren't splitting, else check plus equals 1. Now if we are splitting, first we've got to split the cards by first appending onto the player's list a new hand, which will already have a card being the second card that was in the original hand, player's I1. Now set the original to a list with just that first card in. So to visualise, the original list will get split up into two lists like so. Bear in mind that the index of these two lists will always be the first one is where the original list was, so I, and then the new list will always be at the end as it was created, so we can do position -1. Using these positions like we have before, we will use the take card function to grab a new card from the shoe and place it into the new deck. Now that is actually it. We have now got it to split the hands for us. The final things to add is the check we said about. So this is very simple. If check equals the len of the player's list, then splitting is false, ending the loop. Now using the pause in the right place, we can have a look at all of these hands getting split up to basic strategy recommendation. For us to treat all of these hands separately, we will need to change all the variables we have been using into lists. So this will be our bet, amount, and double down. To do this, I'm first going to take our number of hands as a variable with len of players. Now to create these lists, so for example, if we have 4 hands, we need to make the amount variable false, 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 false. So starting off with bet equals square brackets, bet for underscore in range hands. Then the same for amount using 0 and double down using false. Great. So now we have to go through each of these hands separately and perform the player function on it. So placing in a for loop to repeat for hands, we will then indent all of the function called and then the doubling down if statement. Next, we will change all of the variables from before to the new lists taking index I. So that will be double down, bets, players, and amount. Finally, the last thing we need to change is the dealing out of the winnings. This is where I made a mistake last video. I used this for loop here, which I shouldn't have done yet, which would have multiplied the winnings by the length of the hand, which would have skewed the results. So apologies for that. But now it is fine, so we can use it. So the same as before, a nice and easy change. Change all the amount variables to amount I, and then change the bet to bets I. Now it will go through each hand separately to deal out the winnings. The different bets are done so we can keep track of which hands have been doubled down. Now we are done. Let's see if splitting is worth it. So before adding splitting, we got a result of 62 grand lost over 1 million hands using a £10 bet. So on average losing 6.2p per bet with basic strategy. So you're losing about 0.62% of your bet per hand with perfect strategy. What about now though? From my runs, I seem to lose 55 grand on average. So losing about 0.55% of your bet per hand. So therefore we still lose, but we don't lose as much, which I suppose in its own way is a little win. But now what we really want to do is start using all this data to draw up some graphs and statistics so we can see any trends during the runs and see more in depth of how your money can fluctuate. This is exactly what we will be doing in the next video, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching the video today. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. If so, please support the channel by liking this video and subscribing to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.